How does asking my husband to leave for a single night, just so my male best friend could stay over, turn into the end of our marriage? Why did he stop arguing, start collecting receipts, and then quietly deliver the final blow when I thought I controlled the story? I'm Lysandra Pell, 32 years old, and I work as a project coordinator at an arts nonprofit downtown. My life was perfectly ordinary until that Tuesday evening in October when everything changed. I thought I was being progressive, modern, confident. I thought I was testing boundaries in a healthy way. I was wrong about everything. "Jonah, I need you to stay somewhere else tonight," I announced as my husband walked through our apartment door, his teacher's bag slung over his shoulder. He'd just finished another long day teaching high school math, and I could see the exhaustion in his 35-year-old face. He stopped mid-step, setting his bag down slowly on our kitchen counter. "What did you say?" "Felix is coming over tonight. We're working on the gallery project, and it's going to run really late. It would just be easier if he stayed here instead of driving home at 2 in the morning. I kept my voice casual, like I was discussing dinner plans. Jonah stared at me for a long moment. "You want me to leave my own home so another man can sleep here?" "Don't be dramatic. Felix is my best friend. We've known each other for 3 years. This is about work, not whatever weird scenario you're imagining." I rolled my eyes, pulling out my phone to text Felix that the coast would be clear. "Lysandra, this isn't about jealousy. This is about respect. You're asking your husband to leave so another man can spend the night. How does that sound to you?" I looked up from my phone, annoyed by his tone. "It sounds like I'm a modern woman who doesn't need her husband's permission to have friends over. Felix and I work together. We're adults. This is 2023, not 1953. Jonah ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was trying to solve a difficult equation. "This isn't about the year, Liz. This is about boundaries, about what's appropriate in a marriage." "Appropriate?" I laughed, but it came out sharper than I intended. "You know what's inappropriate. Your insecurity, your assumption that I can't be trusted alone with a male friend. That's what's inappropriate." Our 7-year-old daughter Maya appeared in the doorway, her small face curious. "Why are you and Daddy talking loud?" "We're just discussing Daddy's sleepover plans," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "He's going to stay at Uncle Nate's tonight." Maya looked between us, her dark eyes, so much like Jonah's, reflecting confusion. "But why?" "Because Mommy has a work friend coming over, and Daddy wants to give us space to focus," I explained, shooting Jonah a look that dared him to contradict me in front of our daughter. Jonah knelt down to Maya's level. "That's right, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow after school, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." Maya hugged him, and I saw something shift in Jonah's expression as he held her. When he stood up, his face had changed. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something else, something colder. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'll pack a bag." I felt a surge of victory mixed with relief. "Thank you for being understanding." "Oh, I understand perfectly." His voice was so calm it almost sounded normal. Almost. While Jonah packed, I texted Felix. "All clear. Come over whenever. Can't wait to see you." He responded immediately. "Your husband's really okay with this?" "More than okay. He's evolved enough to trust his wife," I typed back, then added a selfie with a thumbs up. 20 minutes later, Jonah emerged from our bedroom with a small duffel bag. He kissed Maya goodbye, his movements careful and deliberate. "I'll be at my Aunt Lydia's," he said to me. "Call if there's an emergency with Maya." "Of course. And Jonah, thank you. This project is really important to me." He looked at me for a long moment. "I'm sure it is." After he left, I felt energized, powerful even. I'd stood my ground, asserted my independence, and shown that I wouldn't be controlled by outdated expectations. I took a quick selfie in our living room and posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes you have to create space for what matters." Modern marriage. Trust and respect. And work life. Felix arrived an hour later with Chinese takeout and his laptop. He was 33, tall and lean, with an easy smile that made everyone in our office gravitate toward him. We'd become close working on various projects, and I'd always appreciated how he treated me like an intellectual equal rather than just someone's wife. "I can't believe Jonah actually left," Felix said, setting the food on our dining table. "Most husbands would have lost their minds. Most husbands are insecure and controlling. Jonah knows better." I opened the wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. This felt special enough. Still, asking him to leave his own place, that's bold even for you, Lys. I poured 2 generous glasses of wine. It's not his place, or my place. It's our place. And tonight, our place needed to be a workspace without distractions. We spread our project materials across the coffee table, but within an hour, the wine and Felix's attention had me feeling more relaxed than I'd felt in months. He listened to my ideas, built on them, made me feel brilliant and creative. When was the last time Jonah had looked at me the way Felix was looking at me now? "You know," Felix said, leaning closer as we reviewed the gallery layout on his laptop, "you're wasted in project coordination. You should be curating. You have an eye for this." His hand brushed mine as he reached for his wine glass, and I didn't pull away. Maybe I should be. Maybe I've been settling for less than I deserve. In work. In everything. We worked until midnight, but it didn't feel like work. It felt like possibility, like potential, like the life I should have been living all along. When Felix suggested we take a break and watch something on Netflix, I agreed immediately. We ended up on the couch, closer than necessary, sharing observations about the documentary we'd put on. Felix had this way of making everything seem more interesting, more significant. He made me feel like the most fascinating woman in the room. "I should probably head home," he said around 1 in the morning, but he made no move to leave. "You could stay," I said, the words coming out before I'd fully thought them through. "I mean, you're tired, I'm tired, and you'd just have to drive all the way across town." "Are you sure? What about Jonah?" "What about him? He's at his aunt's. He won't be back until tomorrow evening." I stood up, suddenly feeling bold and alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Besides, we're adults. We can make our own decisions." Felix smiled, and I felt something inside me respond to that smile in a way that had nothing to do with work projects or friendship. "Okay," he said, "I'll stay." I set him up on the couch with blankets and pillows, but we both knew the gesture was just for show. We both knew this night was about more than convenience or late work hours. We both knew I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As I lay in my bed, the bed I shared with Jonah, I felt a thrill of rebellion, of freedom, of finally taking what I wanted instead of settling for what was expected. I took one more selfie, this one showing Felix's jacket draped over our dining room chair, and posted it with the caption, "When work becomes life and life becomes beautiful, some nights are worth staying up for." Living authentically, no regrets. I fell asleep feeling powerful and alive, completely unaware that Jonah was sitting in his aunt's kitchen, methodically screenshotting every single post I'd made that evening, creating a folder on his phone labeled simply, "Evidence." The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd discovered a new version of myself. Felix was already up, making coffee in our kitchen like he belonged there. Seeing him move around the space that had always been just mine and Jonah's felt revolutionary. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, handing me a mug. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in months." I meant it. I felt refreshed, awakened, like I'd been sleepwalking through my marriage and finally opened my eyes. Felix left before Maya woke up, but not before taking a selfie of us together in the morning light streaming through our living room windows. "For the memories," he said, and I posted it immediately with the caption, "Some mornings just feel different, when you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be." New chapter gratitude. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. "Girl, yes, Live your truth. Where's Jonah? Trouble in paradise? Is this what I think it is? You look so happy. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But there were other comments too. This is inappropriate and you know it. Your husband deserves better. Think about your daughter. I deleted the negative ones and hearted all the positive responses. Let people talk, let them judge. I was finally living authentically, and if they couldn't handle that, it was their problem, not mine. At work that day, the energy was electric. Everyone had seen my posts, and I could feel the buzz of gossip and speculation following me through the hallways. Felix and I had lunch at our usual downtown cafe, and I noticed people at other tables glancing over, whispering. "You're causing quite a stir," Felix said, amused. "Good. Maybe it's time people realize that marriage doesn't mean ownership." I raised my iced coffee in a mock toast to breaking expectations. "To beautiful, brave women who know what they want," Felix countered, clinking his cup against mine. A woman at the next table was clearly filming us with her phone, but instead of feeling embarrassed, I felt vindicated. Let her film. Let the whole world see that some women refuse to be caged by convention. That afternoon, my mother Rosa called. "Lysandra, what are these pictures I'm seeing online? Where is Jonah?" "Jonah is fine, Mom. I'm fine. Everything is fine." I was in my office, but I kept my voice low. I had a work friend over last night, and Jonah stayed at his aunt's to give us space. It's called trust. "Trust?" Rosa's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Misha, I raised you better than this. You don't ask your husband to leave so another man can sleep in your home. That's not trust, that's disrespect. It's 2023, not 1983. Women can have male friends. Married women can have male friends. I'm not going to apologize for refusing to live by outdated rules. This isn't about rules, it's about marriage, about commitment, about what you promised Jonah when you said, 'I do.'" I hung up on her. I was tired of everyone trying to make me feel guilty for finally putting myself first, for finally refusing to shrink myself to make others comfortable. But the calls kept coming. Jonah's Aunt Lydia called twice, leaving voicemails I didn't listen to. My brother Nate texted, "Sis, what's going on? Jonah showed up at Mum's looking like someone died." I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the flood of supportive messages from my friend Marina and several colleagues who understood what it meant to be a woman refusing to be controlled. When I got home that evening, Jonah was already there, sitting at our dining table with Maya, helping her with homework. He looked up when I walked in, and I was struck by how different his face looked. The hurt from yesterday was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite read. "How was your day?" he asked, his voice perfectly polite. "Productive. Felix and I made real progress on the gallery project." I set my bag down, waiting for him to ask about the photos, the comments, the obvious buzz surrounding my posts. But he didn't. "That's good. Maya, why don't you go wash up for dinner?" After Maya left the room, we stood in silence for a moment. I'd expected anger, accusations, demands for explanations. Instead, Jonah just looked at me with those unreadable eyes. "So we're not going to talk about last night?" I finally asked. "What's to talk about? You made your position clear. You wanted space for your work, I gave you space." His voice was so calm it was almost eerie. "Right, exactly. Thank you for understanding." I felt oddly deflated by his reasonableness. Part of me had been looking forward to defending my choices, to standing my ground against his jealousy and possessiveness. But there was no fight to be had. "I do understand, Lysandra. I understand perfectly." Something in his tone made me look at him more closely, but his expression revealed nothing. He'd always been good at hiding his thoughts when he was working through complex problems, but this felt different. Over dinner, Maya chatted about her day at school, and we maintained the facade of normal family life. But I could feel something shifting beneath the surface, like tectonic plates moving before an earthquake. That night, as we got ready for bed, I waited for Jonah to bring up the posts, the comments, the obvious speculation about our marriage. But he just brushed his teeth, kissed my forehead goodnight, and went to sleep. I lay awake, strangely unsatisfied by his lack of reaction. I'd been prepared for a fight, for drama, for the chance to articulate all the ways I'd been feeling trapped and undervalued. Instead, I got polite acceptance and a goodnight kiss. I checked my phone one more time before sleep. The morning selfie with Felix had gotten over 200 likes and dozens of comments. The validation felt good, but not as good as I'd expected. What I didn't know was that Jonah wasn't sleeping either. He was lying perfectly still beside me, staring at the ceiling, while his phone sat on the nightstand with a new folder containing screenshots of every post, every comment, every piece of evidence that his marriage was becoming a public spectacle. He'd also started a simple spreadsheet that night, with columns for dates, incidents, and witnesses. The first entry read, October 15th. Lysandra asks me to leave home so male friend can stay overnight. Public social media posts suggest intimate evening, multiple witnesses via online comments. While I dreamed of freedom and authenticity, Jonah was quietly building a case that would change both our lives forever. The next few weeks passed in a blur of escalating tension and growing attention. What had started as one night of boundary pushing had become a pattern, and I found myself addicted to the feeling of power and independence it gave me. Felix and I began having regular work sessions that required privacy, sometimes at my apartment, sometimes at upscale coffee shops where I knew we'd be seen. I documented every moment on social media, crafting a narrative of a modern woman refusing to be constrained by traditional expectations. Another late-night strategy session with my brilliant colleague. I posted alongside a photo of Felix and me at our dining table, wine glasses and laptops creating an intimate workspace. When you find someone who challenges your thinking and supports your vision, you make time for that collaboration. Work wife, in creative partnership, unapologetic life. The comments section became a battlefield. My supporters cheered me on. Yes, Queen, professional partnerships are so important, and your husband should be proud to have such an ambitious wife. But the critics were getting louder. This is inappropriate and everyone knows it, and poor Jonah, he deserves so much better than this public humiliation. I blocked the negative commenters and hearted every positive response. Let them judge. I was finally living authentically, and their discomfort with my choices said more about their limitations than mine. At work, however, things were becoming complicated. My supervisor, Janet, called me into her office on a Thursday morning. Lysandra, I need to talk to you about some concerns that have been raised. Concerns? I sat down, genuinely confused. About your social media presence, specifically your posts involving Felix. Some of our donors have expressed discomfort with the way you're representing yourself and, by extension, our organization. I felt my face flush with anger. My personal life has nothing to do with my professional performance. I've never posted anything inappropriate or unprofessional. That's debatable. When you post intimate photos with a male colleague while publicly discussing your husband's absence, it reflects on all of us. The Hartley Foundation specifically mentioned your posts when they called to discuss their continued support. So now I'm supposed to censor myself because some conservative donors can't handle a woman having male friends. Janet sighed. Lysandra, I'm not asking you to censor yourself. I'm asking you to consider the impact of your choices on your career, on our organization, and on your family. My family is fine. My husband understands that I'm not his property. Maybe everyone else should catch up to the 21st century. But even as I said it, I wondered if my family really was fine. Jonah had become increasingly distant, responding to my attempts at conversation with polite monosyllables. Maya had started asking why Daddy seemed sad, and I'd run out of explanations that didn't make me sound defensive. That evening, I tried to talk to Jonah about the situation at work. Janet is basically asking me to apologize for having friends, for refusing to live like a 1950s housewife who needs her husband's permission to breathe. Jonah looked up from the papers he was grading. Is that what you think this is about? Isn't it? Everyone's so uncomfortable with the idea of a married woman having an independent relationship with a man. It's sexist and outdated. Lysandra, you asked me to leave our home so another man could spend the night. You've been posting intimate photos with him for weeks. You talk about him constantly. This isn't about friendship or independence. Then what is it about? Jonah set down his pen and looked at me directly for the first time in days. It's about respect. It's about boundaries. It's about the fact that you've made our marriage a public joke. A joke because I refuse to be controlled. Because you've chosen another man over your husband, and you're documenting it for the world to see. I stared at him, feeling a mix of anger and something else, something that might have been guilt if I'd let myself examine it too closely. That's not what this is. Then what is it, Lys? Explain it to me. Make me understand why my wife needs to spend more time with another man than with me. Why she needs to kick me out of my own home so she can be alone with him. Why she posts pictures with him but hasn't posted a picture of us together in months. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came, because the truth was, I couldn't explain it in a way that would make sense to him. I couldn't tell him that Felix made me feel interesting and desirable and alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I couldn't admit that being with Felix felt like being the best version of myself, while being with Jonah increasingly felt like settling. I shouldn't have to explain my friendships to you, I said finally. Jonah nodded slowly. You're right, you shouldn't have to explain friendships. But this isn't friendship, and we both know it. He went back to his grading, and I went to our bedroom, pulling out my phone to text Felix. Want to grab drinks? I need to get out of here. His response was immediate. Always. Meet you at Meridian in 20. I changed into my favorite dress, the blue one that made my eyes pop, and took a selfie in our bedroom mirror. Sometimes you need to remember who you are outside of other people's expectations, I posted. Tonight feels like a good night to remember. Self-care, harsh, authentic life, when at ease, no apologies. At Meridian, Felix was waiting at our usual corner table, and seeing him felt like coming up for air after being underwater. He stood to hug me, and I held on a little longer than necessary. Rough night at home? He asked. Jonah's being difficult. He doesn't understand that a marriage should enhance your life, not limit it. Some people are threatened by growth, Felix said, signaling the waitress for another round. They want to keep you small because your expansion makes them feel inadequate. Exactly. I felt validated, understood. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I've evolved, grown, become more confident, and instead of celebrating that, he wants to punish me for it. His loss, Felix said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You're incredible, Lys. Any man who can't see that doesn't deserve you. We talked until the bar closed, and when Felix walked me to my car, he pulled me into another hug. This one was different, longer, closer, charged with possibility. Thank you, I whispered against his shoulder, for seeing me, for understanding. Always, he whispered back, and when we pulled apart, his face was inches from mine. For a moment we stood there in the parking lot, the space between us electric with unspoken possibilities. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Jonah. Maya's asking for you. When will you be home? The spell broke, and I stepped back. I should go. Of course, but Lys, you deserve to be happy. Don't let anyone make you forget that. I drove home feeling conflicted but alive, unaware that a woman at the bar had recognized me from my social media posts and had been filming our interaction from across the room. By morning, a video of Felix and me embracing in the parking lot would be circulating with the caption, "When your husband's at home with your kid, but you're out living your best life, some women have no shame." The video would be shared hundreds of times, tagged to my workplace's social media accounts, and forwarded to my mother, my brother, and Jonah's Aunt Lydia. But that night, I fell asleep feeling powerful and desired, completely unaware that my public choices were building a case against me that would soon become impossible to defend. I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications, dozens of them, comments, tags, messages, all related to a video I'd never seen before. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Felix and me in the Meridian parking lot, embracing, standing close, looking at each other with obvious intimacy. The caption made my stomach drop. Lysandra Pell out with her work husband while her real husband watches their daughter. This is what modern marriage looks like, ladies. Disgusting. The video had been shared 847 times overnight. The comments were brutal. This woman has no shame. Someone needs to send this to her husband. That poor little girl. I work with her. She's been doing this for weeks. My hands shook as I scrolled through the responses. Some people defended me, but they were vastly outnumbered by critics who saw exactly what I'd been trying to pretend wasn't happening. I deleted the tags from my own accounts and blocked the original poster, but the damage was spreading faster than I could contain it. The video had been shared to local Facebook groups, mum forums, and professional networks. My carefully crafted narrative of empowered independence was being rewritten as a story of infidelity and betrayal. Jonah was already gone when I went to the kitchen. Maya sat at the counter eating cereal, and she looked up when I appeared. "Daddy left early," she said. He looked sad again. "Daddy's just tired, sweetheart. He's been working hard." "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Emma's parents got divorced, and first they were sad all the time, and then her dad moved out, and then they got divorced. Daddy seems sad, and sometimes he sleeps in the guest room." I knelt down to Maya's level, forcing a smile. "Daddy and I are fine. We're just going through a stressful time with work. Sometimes adults need space to figure things out." "Okay." But Maya didn't look convinced. At work, the atmosphere was arctic. Conversation stopped when I walked by. People who usually greeted me with friendly waves suddenly found their computers fascinating. Janet called me into her office before I'd even reached my desk. "Lysandra, we need to talk. Now." She closed the door behind me and gestured to a chair. On her computer screen was the video from last night, paused on the moment Felix and I were standing closest together. This was sent to me by 3 different people this morning. It's been shared to our organization's Facebook page 6 times. The Hartley Foundation called an hour ago to formally withdraw their funding. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Janet, this is being taken completely out of context. Felix and I are friends. We were having a difficult conversation about work stress, and he was comforting me. Lysandra, I need you to listen very carefully. This has gone beyond personal choices. Your behavior is now directly impacting our ability to operate. We depend on community support, and right now you've become a liability. So you're firing me for having friends. I'm placing you on administrative leave while we assess the situation. You'll continue to receive pay, but I need you to stay away from the office and cease all contact with Felix during work hours. This is discrimination. You can't punish me for my personal relationships. I can when those relationships are affecting our professional reputation and financial stability. I'm sorry, Lysandra. I really am. But this situation has spiraled beyond what we can manage. I left the office in a daze, my career suddenly in jeopardy, because people couldn't handle a woman refusing to be controlled by traditional expectations. Or at least, that's what I told myself as I drove home, trying to ignore the voice in my head that whispered I'd brought this on myself. At home, I called Felix. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" "Is that a good idea right now? That video is everywhere. Maybe we should lay low for a while." "Lay low?" "Felix, they're trying to destroy my life because I refuse to live in a cage. I need you right now." There was a pause. "Liz, maybe we should think about this. Maybe we've been, I don't know, maybe we've been sending the wrong message. The wrong message? What message? That women can have male friends? That marriages should be based on trust instead of ownership? No, look, I care about you. You know that. But maybe we've gotten a little carried away. Maybe we should step back and let things cool down. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Are you abandoning me? When I need support the most, you're abandoning me. I'm not abandoning you. I'm being realistic. This situation has gotten out of hand, and maybe we both need to take responsibility for our part in that. After I hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling more alone than I had in years. The silence was broken by my phone ringing. My mother. Lysandra, I saw the video. We need to talk. Not now, Mom. Yes, now. Mija, what are you doing? What are you thinking? You have a husband who loves you, a beautiful daughter, a good life. Why are you throwing it all away for this man who doesn't even have the courage to stand by you when things get difficult? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You think you're being modern and independent, but you're being selfish and foolish. You're destroying your family for what? For excitement, for attention, for some fantasy that this other man represents? I hung up on her, but her words echoed in my head. When Jonah came home that evening, I was waiting for him, ready to finally have the conversation we'd been avoiding. We need to talk, I said. Yes, we do. His voice was calm, but there was something different about his posture, his expression, something final. Jonah, I know how this looks, but… Lysandra, stop. He held up a hand. I don't want to hear explanations or justifications. I want to tell you what's going to happen. Something in his tone made me fall silent. I've been documenting everything, every post, every photo, every time you've prioritized Felix over our family, every time you've made our marriage a public spectacle. I have screenshots, timestamps, witness statements from Maya's teachers about the times you've missed school events because you were with him. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done. I'm filing for divorce and I'm seeking primary custody of Maya. You can't be serious. Over some photos, over having a friend, over the fact that you asked me to leave our home so another man could stay, over the fact that you've spent more time with him than with your own daughter in the past month, over the fact that you've made it clear that we, Maya and I, are not your priority. I stared at him, seeing a stranger where my husband used to be. Jonah, please, we can work through this. I can explain. There's nothing to explain, Lys. You've made your choices very publicly. Now you get to live with the consequences. He walked to our bedroom and returned with a suitcase I hadn't noticed him packing. I'll be staying at Lydia's with Maya until the lawyers sort out temporary arrangements. You can't take Maya. She's my daughter too. She's our daughter, but right now, I'm the parent who's been putting her first. As he loaded Maya's things into the car, I stood in our apartment doorway, watching my life disintegrate. Maya hugged me goodbye, confused and scared, and I wanted to tell her this was all a misunderstanding, that Daddy was overreacting, that everything would be fine. But looking at Jonah's face, calm, resolved, and completely done with me, I realized that nothing would ever be fine again. That night, I posted one last defiant message. Sometimes standing up for yourself costs everything, but living authentically is worth any price. No regrets. War truth teller, nur stronger alone. The comments were swift and merciless. You chose another man over your family. That's not authentic, it's selfish. Your daughter will read these posts someday. I hope it was worth it. Felix is already posting photos with someone else. Hope you enjoyed your authentic life. I checked Felix's Instagram. Sure enough, there he was at a gallery opening with a beautiful brunette, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption read, "New beginnings with amazing people. Life is good." I was tagged in exactly 0 of his recent posts. As I sat alone in the apartment that had once been our family home, I finally understood what Jonah had been trying to tell me. I hadn't been living authentically. I'd been living selfishly, and now, with my marriage over, my career in jeopardy, and my daughter confused and hurt, I was facing the real cost of my choices. But it was too late for understanding. The receipts had been collected, the evidence compiled, and the man I'd underestimated for 7 years was about to show me exactly how much my authentic life was going to cost. The divorce proceedings moved with a speed that left me reeling. Jonah's lawyer was thorough, methodical, and devastatingly prepared. Every social media post, every photo, every public display of my relationship with Felix had been catalogued and presented as evidence of my unfitness as a primary parent. Your Honor, Jonah's attorney addressed the judge during our temporary custody hearing. Mrs. Pell has demonstrated a pattern of prioritizing her extramarital relationship over her child's well-being. On 17 documented occasions, she missed school events, parent-teacher conferences, or family obligations to spend time with Mr. Lorenz. I watched in horror as my life was dissected with clinical precision. Screenshots of my posts were displayed on a large monitor, each one seeming more damning than the last. The photo of Felix's jacket draped over our dining room chair. The late-night selfies with captions about living authentically. The video from the Meridian parking lot. Furthermore, the attorney continued, Mrs. Pell has made these choices publicly, creating an environment of instability and embarrassment for the minor child. Maya Pell's teachers report that she has been withdrawn and anxious, asking questions about her parents' relationship that no 7-year-old should have to ask. My own lawyer did her best to defend me, arguing that I was a loving mother whose personal relationships had been unfairly scrutinized, but the evidence was overwhelming, and worse, it was all true. The judge awarded Jonah temporary primary custody, with me getting supervised visitation until a full evaluation could be completed. Supervised? I stood up, my voice breaking. Your Honor, I've never hurt my daughter. I would never hurt my daughter. Mrs. Pell, the judge said firmly, this isn't about physical harm. This is about emotional stability and decision-making. Your recent choices suggest a pattern of prioritizing personal desires over parental responsibilities. Until we can ensure that pattern has changed, supervised visitation is in the child's best interest. I left the courthouse feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Maya would live with Jonah. I would see her twice a week for 4 hours at a time, with a court-appointed supervisor present. My marriage was over, my career was in shambles, and now I was being treated like a danger to my own child. The worst part was the silence from people I'd thought were friends. Marina, who had cheered on my rebellion for weeks, suddenly stopped returning my calls. Felix had blocked me on all social media after I'd tried to reach out for support. Even my brother Nate, usually my most loyal defender, was keeping his distance. Liz, I love you, but you made this mess, he said when I finally got him on the phone. You can't ask people to support choices that hurt a little kid. I never hurt Maya. Everything I did was about finding myself, about refusing to be controlled. You asked your husband to leave so another man could sleep in your house. You documented an affair on social media. You missed Maya's school play to have dinner with Felix. How is any of that about finding yourself? It wasn't an affair. Felix and I never... Doesn't matter what you did or didn't do physically. You had an emotional affair, and you did it publicly. You humiliated Jonah and confused Maya, and now you're surprised that there are consequences. After he hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. I'd been trying to live authentically, to refuse the constraints of traditional marriage, to be a modern woman who didn't need permission to have relationships. But looking at the evidence Jonah's lawyer had presented, I could see how my choices looked to everyone else. I could see how they looked to Maya, who had watched her father grow sad and distant while her mother posted photos with another man. I could see how they looked to my colleagues, who had watched me prioritize Felix over professional boundaries. I could see how they looked to Jonah, who had watched his wife choose another man over their marriage. The knock on my door interrupted my spiral of self-reflection. It was my mother, holding a bag of groceries and wearing the expression she'd worn when I was 7 and had broken her favorite vase. "Mija, you look terrible." "Thanks, Mom. That's exactly what I needed to hear." She pushed past me into the apartment, setting the groceries on the counter. "When was the last time you ate something that wasn't from a box?" "I don't know. I'm not really hungry these days." Rosa started unpacking the groceries, her movements sharp with controlled anger. "You know what I don't understand? You had everything: a good man who loved you, a beautiful daughter, a nice home, a job you enjoyed. And you threw it all away for what? For some man who won't even return your calls now that things got difficult." I was trying to be true to myself. "True to yourself?" Rosa slammed a can of soup on the counter. "You were being true to your selfishness. You were being true to your need for attention and excitement, but you weren't being true to your responsibilities as a wife and mother." Marriage shouldn't be a prison. Marriage is a partnership. It's about putting your family first, about making sacrifices for the people you love. You think I never wanted excitement? You think I never looked at other men and wondered what my life might have been like? But I chose your father every day because that's what love is. It's choosing the same person over and over, even when it's hard. I felt tears starting to form. I felt invisible, Mum, like I was just going through the motions of someone else's life. Rosa's expression softened slightly. "So you talk to your husband. You go to counseling. You find ways to grow together instead of growing apart. You don't start an affair and document it on social media like it's something to be proud of." "I didn't have an affair." "Lysandra, stop lying to yourself. Maybe you didn't sleep with Felix, but you had an affair. You gave him the attention and affection that belonged to your husband. You prioritized his feelings over Jonah's. You chose him over your family repeatedly. That's an affair, even if you kept your clothes on." We sat in silence for a moment, the truth of her words settling between us. "I've lost everything," I whispered. "Not everything. You still have Maya, if you're willing to fight for her the right way. And you still have the chance to learn from this, to become the person you should have been all along." "What if it's too late?" "It's too late to save your marriage. Jonah is done, and honestly, I don't blame him. But it's not too late to save your relationship with your daughter, and it's not too late to save yourself." That night, I finally did something I should have done weeks earlier. I deleted every social media account I had. I erased the digital trail of my authentic life, the documented evidence of my journey from wife and mother to whatever I had become. But the damage was permanent. Screenshots lived forever, and the internet never forgot. My story had become a cautionary tale shared in mom groups and marriage forums. This is what happens when women think they can have it all without consequences. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about the question I'd started with. How does asking your husband to leave for a single night turn into the end of your marriage? The answer was simple and devastating. It doesn't. The end of my marriage hadn't started with one night. It had started with a series of choices, each one seeming small and justified in the moment, but adding up to a betrayal so complete and public that there was no coming back from it. Jonah hadn't stopped waiting because I asked him to leave for one night. He'd stopped waiting because I'd shown him, repeatedly and publicly, that he and Maya were no longer my priority. And now, alone in the apartment that had once been our home, I finally understood the difference between living authentically and living selfishly. But understanding came too late to save anything that mattered. 6 months later, I held the final decree on courthouse steps, shocked how thin 7 years became. Jonah won primary custody of Maya, the apartment, and most assets. I earned weekends after counseling and classes. My lawyer said his evidence made trial pointless. Felix vanished after the video, and my job returned only in a quiet, reduced role. Maya asked why we divorced and said I forgot her sometimes. That truth finally landed. I called it authentic, but it was reckless selfishness. I apologized to Jonah, and for the first time felt hope, earned slowly, day by day, from here forward.